Hey, Armand here with your astrology forecast for the week of December 24th, 2023. It's the last week of 2023, and it's a busy week. It's by no means what we would call a quiet week astrologically. But before we get to that, a little bit of business. If you're around on Saturday, December 30th at 12 p.m. noon Eastern Time, I'm going to be doing the live forecast for January, and that'll be that's at 12 p.m. on the dot. 12 p.m. on the dot on December 30th. That's Eastern Time. That would be 9 a.m. Pacific Time, 5 p.m. UK and Ireland. And I know the rest of you guys can figure that out. Actually, because I think it's easy, because I think 1700 would be GMT now, so you can just calculate from there. But you're good at it if you live in other places. You don't need me to tell you how to do these things. Okay. So, and then also, I should say that probably on Thursday, the 28th, I will put out a video for a video, as we say, a video on a general forecast. It's not a general I'm going to call it a general forecast, but it's like a highlight reel for 2024. So you should look for that. You know what you should do is you should just subscribe so that you don't have to look for these things or remember them or anything like that. They'll just show up for you when you come onto YouTube. All right, let's get started with this week. Remember the whole mantra for December, right? We are allowing, not pushing. We are letting serendipity rule. We are kind of, opening up to things, not really trying to do too much. Well, that is exactly what we should be doing this week. There's a lot of really nice, there's a lot of aspects. I don't know if we have to call them nice or whatever. There's a lot of energies that will be pretty good if we can just allow and let things go and just kind of hope. Look, a lot of people are off this week, the week between Christmas and New Year's. A lot of people have off, and then if you are at work, unless you're in retail or hospitality or transportation, there may not be that much to do. So it's kind of like a let things go sort of week anyway, the holiday parties and things like that. Perfect for this astrological weather. Some things that are happening this week include the full moon on the 26th. That's Tuesday, the day after Christmas. We have Venus trine to Neptune on the 25th. We have some just nice energies going on. We even have Venus is going to be sextile to Pluto on Thursday, just before she moves into Sagittarius. And that Venus going into Sagittarius definitely lightens the mood a little bit for holidays. I know that the most holiday gatherings happen kind of in the run up to the 25th as opposed to afterwards, but it does open up some possibilities for us in terms of socializing. And then on Saturday, Jupiter stations to go direct, ending his retrograde period, which began in early September. And so we are the planet of faith and optimism and hope is going to be moving forward just as we begin the new year. Terrific energy for New Year's Eve, of course, having Jupiter stationed. He's technically it's on the 30th, but we feel this energy coming all the way through the week. So, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this sort of upbeat energy of a Jupiter station is predominant. Venus is now in Jupiter's sign of Sagittarius. It's all good. Before she leaves for Sagittarius, she does make that sextile to Pluto. And that sextile to Pluto, it's a little bit tough. It's an easy aspect, but it's it's Pluto, and Venus is in Pluto's sign. So before she went into Sagittarius, before she went into Scorpio, rather, she was at the end of Libra, and it was almost kind of like she got a bit of a set of instructions from Pluto by squaring. And now it's kind of like reporting back. In other words, let me not make all these little metaphors and stories up. In other words, over the last few weeks, what have you learned in your relationships? Right, this is a little bit of a thought as we wrap up the year. You can think a little bit bigger picture, of course, that's encouraged. Certainly when Venus gets into Sagittarius, that's encouraged. But in general, what have you learned? What have you been through? Where were there some challenges and so on? The Venus, I'm backing up to the week here, the Venus trine to Neptune that is exact on Monday, the 25th, is a very nice energy as well. It gives a little bit more of a kind of, I would say, sort of goth, playful kind of energy that is, it's Christmas, so do what you can. All right. We also have, I'm looking over here to see the sun now in Capricorn will be making a nice trine to Jupiter, stationing Jupiter. That happens on Wednesday. That, again, very upbeat, optimistic energy. And yes, Mercury is square to Neptune, but that's just telling us once again that we have to be a little bit careful about taking things too seriously. So one thing to pay attention to this week with anything that comes up, nothing's going to come up, but anything that comes up, one thing to keep in mind is that there's a resonance with this week with the last week in November, the week that was roughly November 25th to December 2nd. A lot of the same aspects, like Mercury square Neptune. We have the planets at the end of signs. We have Pluto aspect. There's a lot of similarity. Full moon. There's a lot of energy that comes with that. We have the full moon on the 26th, and so that resonates with last month's full moon on the 27th. So it may be that we're getting a bit of a replay or a chance for a do-over this week if you look back to that first week in December, last week in November time, and you may see that there are some, similar themes emerging or some issues that need to be revisited, things that popped up at that period of time may be going through some sort of a revision, a redo now, particularly if it's anything mercurial, then we may have to wait till around January 8th when Mercury squares Neptune for the last time. And that might be the period of resolution for things that came up towards the end of November. And that's all there is to it. It's a fun, flowing kind of energy to wrap up the week and to wrap up the year, I should say. And Jupiter station, very optimistic. It should be a really good time. And see you next week. Okay, now listen. Here's the thing. I want everybody else to clear out so that we could talk. It's the case that everything I said up until now is true. But some people, not you, but some people are going to have a little difficulty with this energy this week. Indeed, the Mercury square to Neptune, Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, square to Neptune. I mean, Mercury Neptune is already like, Mercury retrograde raised to a power. In the signs of Sagittarius and Pisces, we're talking dual signs, so that increases the possibilities. And this time around, Mercury is in fact retrograde. So more or less what we're likely to see is an increase in mercurial snafus, the kind of Mercury retrograde problems that we typically see. Things like traffic and transportation issues, and it could be just what you're experiencing, or it could be something that's, makes the news and is dramatic. We could also be seeing all kinds of communication going awry, computer stuff, technology, all the rest of that. More than usual, yes. More prominent than usual, right? More prominent than usual. And this is happening right at the full moon. So we have the energy of the full moon pumping into this retrograde Mercury square Neptune energy. A very, very, very volatile mix when it comes to the kinds of communication, commerce, as a matter of fact, too. If you're if you're still waiting for that thing that you ordered to show up, 10 days before Christmas from Amazon or something like that, you may find that it finally makes its way over to you on January 8th. These types of things, what we would worry about, but not that we're going to worry, but what we have to be aware of is that some people are going to take that energy of the full moon, the emotionality of the full moon, the I can do it energy of Jupiter stationing, and go off and act on misinformation, right? This is the caveat to the week. If you if you need to fill in the blanks, if you get some information and you just need to fill in the blanks, don't. Don't act on it at any rate. We have a lot of energy that is suggesting nebulousness. The full moon, people are emotional, people are ready to go. We have the Jupiter station, people are full of faith and optimism, and faith and optimism is a wonderful thing. We have the sun trying to station in Jupiter, faith and optimism once again. We also have Mars square Neptune. If you ever wanted a recipe for people, going off on a crusade, it is Mars square to Neptune. And Mars in Sagittarius is kind of ready for a crusade anyway. So we have the mixture of misinformation and very high energy, a propensity to act and act impulsively. And these are all things that we would not like to do too much of. This is, again, I mean, Jupiter station on New Year's Eve. I mean, this is that's great energy, and the moon will still have a lot of pep in it by the time we get to the weekend. It's really good as long as you don't take things too seriously. But people who take things too seriously could be really, really wicked difficult to deal with. So let them go. Let them go their way. Don't get into road rage incidents. Don't get into any rage incident at all, because some folks, not you, but some folks are going to be feeling for the rage with this energy. Think about it as the last week of the year, sort of looking forward, looking back, enjoying yourself, going to parties, seeing what comes up, doing what feels right. Accept that change of plans may be necessary. Change of plans might be necessary. Things might not work out like you expect them to this week. Even festive events may need to be rejiggered and refigured out a bit. But be aware that not everybody, I mean, spiritually evolved people like yourself, it's water off a duck's back. But for a stooge like me, I mean, I might overreact to some stuff. I might become a little bit more edgy about some things. And, if you run into me or someone like me on the street, then you want to be aware of it. So don't take things too seriously. With Venus being where she is and going through the steps over here, be careful around relationships. And watch the financial markets too. They'd be pretty interesting. With Venus opposite Uranus last week, the financial markets, which had been climbing, dropped, big precipitous drop, and then they bounced back. That's a very Uranian type of thing. Boop, boop. And this time we're looking at Neptune and Pluto, or we have a little too much optimism, a little bit too much of a little bit of too much fear. But I think too much optimism would probably be the most likely thing as we wrap up the year. But in relationships too, if you're thinking that like maybe it's time to end the relationship with the year, I mean, I could definitely see that this would be there's some real breakup potential coming. If in strained relationships, in good relationships, you're fine. This doesn't make any difference. But in a strained relationship, I think this could be one of the many, one of the many periods of time when a frail relationship will finally shatter and break apart. Okay, I think you've got it, right? Take it easy. Be aware that not everybody else is going to. Join me on Saturday, December 30th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time for the January astrology forecast. And look sometime around Thursday, the 28th, or maybe even Friday, the 29th, look for the 2024 forecast. But you and I know it's really just a highlight reel.